Hey everyone, it's Amy Brown with If Gathering, and I'm here with Lindsay Nobles.
Hey guys.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
As you can tell behind us, we have a little bit more gloom in fall weather, hopefully ish headed this way. But today we are together with Anne via Google Hangout, Voskamp, who recently just launched The Broken Way. We've been tearing through it over like the last couple weeks. And we're just so excited to have you here, Anne, and just to get to talk about the book and the tour and everything that's going on with you. So where are you today?
I am waving from Dallas-Fort Worth area. We are at the Marriott near the airport. So we just got here.
Awesome.
We're in Oklahoma City last night. So
and what other tour stops do you have coming?
Okay, we have 3 stops in Dallas, 3 signings in Dallas, and then we are in Atlanta, and then I'm back to Toronto for a full day in Toronto before I get back to the farm. So there's my 10-city tour. So Dallas gets 3 bookstores. So I'm really hoping there's lots of Dallas folks out there.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah,
we're packing it out.
It's a tease how close you are, but we'll let it go this time.
Yeah. So, Anne, we met right before you released your first book, 1,000 Gifts, and I'd love to hear sort of how the last 5 years have been for you in terms of writing and processing. And did you always know that The Broken Way was going to be the message that followed 1,000 Gifts, or did that happen later? They are such beautiful complements to each other.
Yeah, The Broken Way really is the other half of 1,000 Gifts Heart. Did I know that at the time, Lindsay? I don't think I knew that. But I think if The Broken Way was looking at I really believe that the centerpiece of the Christian faith is that Last Supper, which is sort of the metaphor of what happens at the cross. Jesus takes everything, he gives thanks, which is what 1,000 Gifts was exploring. And then The Broken Way really does finish the rest of what Jesus embodies and enacts at the Last Supper, which is he doesn't take those gifts and hoards of that gift and that grace to himself. He breaks it and he gives it. So how do I live broken and give it into the world like bread? But also, how do I live broken as in my own brokenheartedness, my own shortcomings and my own sinfulness, that kind of broken? I think I realized 1,000 Gifts, the most powerful word between 1,000 Gifts and The Broken Way is given. 1,000 Gifts, I realized that what did God do? For God so loved the world, he gave. And 1,000 Gifts, I wanted to live a life of thanksgiving that became really a life of thanks living. And in The Broken Way, it's how do you live broken and given? How do you live a life of givenness, not just out into a broken heart world, but also givenness to him, a posture of surrender and sacrifice to God, living a life that's cruciform, shaped like a cross. So I really believe that the most transformational word in the world is what God did. For God to love the world he gave. So how do I live a life not just of thanksgiving, but of living broken and given?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, we love on page 67, you said, thanksgiving, forgiving, caregiving, life-giving, everything that matters in living comes down to giving. And that just really resonated with Lindsay and with myself. And I think you do that so beautifully, and you put your life kind of out there for other people. You give a lot of yourself. And one of the number one questions that we got when we were asking around was just about that. How do you give to all of your children? How do you give to your writing? How do you give, yourself to God? How do you find time, and what are some big picture ways that you prioritize your life, but also some practical ways?
I think keeping company with Christ moment by moment, because in and of ourselves, goodness sakes, I got nothing to give. I feel like it's easy to buy into the myth of scarcity, that I don't have enough. Can I destroy that myth of scarcity by keeping company with Christ? So I sort of live into the mystery of abundance, that in him there is enough to give. And it's living really, his grace is sufficient by moment by moment. I get up out of bed in the morning. sometimes the most bravest thing you can do is just put one foot on the floor because you don't think you have enough to give today at all. But his grace really is like manna, moment by moment. But I think none of us really do what we do on our own. None of us are lone rangers at all. I think the Broken Way is talking so much about communion, about community. Koinonia is always the miracle that he leads us into the fellowship of the broken. So anything I'm doing because I've got a good husband who comes alongside and fills in the gaps. My mom lives 5 minutes from us. My sister 10 minutes from us. We have a faith community that comes in and says, okay, Anne's out on tour right now. We can go ahead and surprise the Voskamps and deliver meals for the next 2 weeks. I think like all of us, we can't do what we do or what we're called. And Christ never intended that for any of us to do what we're called to do on our own. He's asking you to say, share your brokenness and your neediness with the people around you so that you get the blessing of, and it's humbling to be in a place of receiving from other people. But I think in those places where we can go ahead and say, I cannot do all of this. I'm going to need people to be the hands and feet of Jesus to me. And as they do that, we do enter into a really beautiful kind of communion where we lean into each other to do what God's called us to do. And it's messy and it's not perfect. And my laundry is crazy. And I'm so grateful there's people delivering meals. And I think it's really a matter of focus all the time. How can I just stay focused? Simplicity and leading a life of focusing on Christ isn't a matter of circumstances. It's a matter of intentionality. In the midst of everything, I'm going to stay in a posture of prayer. I'm going to stay in a posture of vulnerability and tell people where I'm really at.
Yeah, so good. It reminds me of, the story that you talked about in the book of Jesus feeding 5,000 and just even the same cycle of sort of realizing that like we don't have enough, like we don't, within us, there's not enough to take care of the need of the world. But that again, like giving thanks, and then with the breaking of the bread, that abundance, that miracle happened in abundance, like came out. So I just talked some about that, Anne. I think it just is such a visual of this broken way.
I think that really, Lindsay, totally encapsulates it. The miracle happens in the breaking. 1,000 gifts was Eucharisteo, giving thanks always precedes the miracle. So what was the actual miracle? When Jesus broke the bread and gave it, it actually multiplied. So the broken way really is inviting you into the broken way of humility, breaking away from saying, I've got it all together, but breaking those masks of really a facade of perfectionism and saying, being humble enough, a life of humility to say, I have deep need in the middle of that brokenness. He comes ahead and provides the need, a life of humility, a life of vulnerability, and being honest about our brokenness with each other. And I think then he multiplies deep grace, deep healing, deep shalom out of those places. So a life of humility, a life of vulnerability, a life of generosity, not giving in and of ourselves, but whatever small thing I have today in the midst of my own brokenness. And sometimes it's being just the gift of giving it forward, of generosity, is just sharing your own brokenness with somebody. So the life of humility and vulnerability and generosity leads to what we're all desperate for, which is a life of intimacy, a life of connection, a life of communion and community with people. And it seems so counterintuitive. We think that if I to get connection with people, to have intimacy and deep friendship and community, I need to show people that I have it all together. And I really believe that the shortest distance between two hearts is to share your brokenness. And it's this upside down paradoxical kingdom of, if I live the broken way of humility and vulnerability and generosity, I will have the most abundant, fulfilling life of deep connection and communion and intimacy, both with Christ and with the people around me.
So good.
That. We wanted to talk a little bit about you. Something that stood out to us was just your birthday, and wanted you to share with everyone this story of what you did for your birthday and what you learned from it.
Oh, my 40th birthday, I wanted to pull the covers over my head and not get out of bed. I just, sometimes you can feel like your brokenness is contagious. That I was passing on to my kids, that I had failed in a million ways, that I wasn't where I wanted to be. It was a bit of a midlife crisis, actually. And we've been reading from Isaiah, the verses that say, if you go ahead and spend your life on behalf of those who are oppressed, who are lonely, who are needy, spend your life on behalf of them, then your light rises like the noonday. So I went with it and did what was completely and totally counterintuitive. We went ahead and what we called gift blitz. Our little country town was about just not in random acts of kindness, but intentional acts of kindness, not paying it forward, but giving it. I think paying it forward means I have to have something to give. Whereas I much prefer the idea of giving it forward every day, being the gift, because then it's all the grace and goodness that God's given me. I just have to pass those gifts on. So we went and gave it forward by paying for a couple's meal in a restaurant, going up to the ER and handing out donuts to the emergency nurses, going to the police station. It really was just gift blitzing the town. And the crazy thing is, when you feel down, your impulse, your default is to be really myopic and insular and turn inward to deal with the sadness and the grief and the lament and sometimes just the depression and dark that you're feeling. But in the midst of that, if you can choose to be the gift and give it forward in one small way every day, reaching out literally is like that noonday rising, like turning the light switch on. I talk about in the Broken Way, researchers at Yale were looking at how do you de-stress in the midst of a rat race kind of a life. And they said the most effective way of de-stressing, defusing your own stress, is to defuse someone else's stress. If people went ahead and did just one or two random, but I like to think of them intentional acts of kindness every day, that was the best way that you could go ahead and de-stress. So it does seem, again, upside down, paradoxical. How can I live broken and given when I feel so broken myself? But in the midst of that, if you can choose to go ahead and do one or two gifts, giving it forward today, and it might just be as simple as the ministry of smiling to people through the airport, the ministry of presence with somebody. So we have thebrokenway.com. If you go, we have free download for every single month, October, November, just one simple thing you can go ahead and do to be the gift and give it forward. I think everybody wants to go out and change the world in a big way, but if you can go ahead and just be the gift in a small way to one person, that changes their world and they change someone else's world. And little bit by little bit, those intentional acts of giving it forward today starts to change the whole world in a really beautiful way.
Definitely does. I love it.
So good. We have a couple questions from
social media,
Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Go ahead.
Oh,
you had a question?
Well, I was just gonna jump in.
Go.
Okay, so one of the women asked about just your writing schedule and what that looks like for you. And I remember when we went on our compassion trip to Guatemala forever ago. I remember being just amazed by the time that you spent writing and how you labored over your words. I think before we had gone, I pictured you just like touching a couple buttons and like outpoured like poetry. Your beautiful poetry, and your blog posts. But I just thought that was like such a fun thing to bring people into, is just that even for you, someone who is a New York Times bestseller, that you labor over the words that you write.
Yeah, you got to see that up close and personal, Lindsay. I don't see myself, never, ever have seen myself as a writer at all. I see myself as a waiter. I have to go and wait on the Lord. I can rush a million other processes. I can clean the house fast, make meals fast, but writing is not a fast process for me. I think it really is a spiritual discipline for me. I have to slow down. I have to listen well. I have to enter into the presence of the Lord. I have to lay my heart out on the screen, on the page, on the table, and I have to I think inspirational writing can only be inspirational if it didn't come from you, if it's not like something you knew. So you have to come with the bits of the story that you have and lay that down and wait on the Lord to show you how he's weaving beautiful threads. He's making a tapestry of grace out of it. So you're right, Lindsay, it is not a fast process for me. It means I write in the fringe hours, early and late on the margins. My husband built a little 10 by 10 cabin. It looks like a little barn at the edge of a cornfield for me. And I go and I sit out in a really quiet space. It feels like prayer to me. I sort of forget that you're going to go ahead and release those words out into the world and sort of trust your heart in the hands of other people. But I think it's the gift of going first, saying, here's my vulnerability. And then hopefully the reader can go ahead and say, I can take off my mask and I can be vulnerable and start to feel my own emotions. I don't think if there's not tears and transformation in the writer, there's no transformation and change in the reader. So for me, writing is sort of just entering into the presence of God with my own brokenness and him doing deep work in me.
I love that.
And you're right, it's as slow as molasses.
How do you balance that and then like also like being as a professional writer having deadlines and things? Like how have you just had to push back and say I have to wait on the Lord, which I love?
Well, I think well, you can see it's taken me how long to write the next book. I think
worth the wait.
I don't think you can go ahead. It's like real soul transformation. That doesn't happen on someone else's deadline.
Yeah.
Grace is like a seed. It's a slow growth process. I don't think you should write down. I think sometimes what is stale, flat writing that doesn't really feed anybody is when it comes from places where it's all didactic and cerebral and from your head. You have to go out and you have to live these things and get dirt underneath your fingernails and realize, I thought it was this way, but when I actually try to live it, it's actually much more complicated and layered and nuanced than I thought it was. So I think you have to go out and you have to live words. And that means you're not writing words. So it's going to take a lot longer. So I don't meet deadlines all the time. Yeah. I'm really grateful that I live with so many gracious people around me who say, you know what, it's more important to go ahead and live what you want to write than it is just writing from a place that's sort of up in some kind of bubble that really won't meet people down in the trenches. So yeah, it does take time. And it's messy. It's not a neat process.
Okay. Well, you can tell.
This is like true confession moment. I've been watching Heartland on Netflix, and I love the way you say process. That's how they say it on there too. I'm like, I know I'm watching a Canadian television. Process.
Process, and us poor Canadians say process. I apologize.
I love it.
Don't apologize. That's great. Women want to know what you are reading / studying in the Bible right now.
Wow, that's a great question. Actually, I want to go ahead and share that. Actually, we've been in a process. I just did it again, Liz.
I love it. No, it's my favorite. Keep it up. I'm going to try to ask you as many questions as I can. That's where you work it in.
I've been working with another writer / poet. We've been working our way through the Message, and we finished working all the way through the New Testament. So we flipped now to the Pentateuch. So I will start in Genesis. So I'm so personally, my own private time, I'm working my way through Genesis. As a family, we have been going very slowly, only 10 verses at a time, through Matthew. We read scripture after every meal because we want to eat real living bread 3 times a day and just not whatever comes on a plate. So we only read about 5 to 10 verses at a time, each of us slowly around the table. And I just think my life falls apart unless I keep company with the words of Jesus. So that has been a slow process working our way through Matthew. I wrote this week about we are 499. We just celebrated the 499th anniversary of the Reformation. So what IF has been doing with looking at church history, I just think steps into such a profound place. So I have been working my way through church history at the same time. So thank you, IF Gathering.
Awesome. We love that you're doing it with us.
Yeah. Okay. So other questions. This is a fun one. I like it. What is your favorite thing that you grow on the farm?
Oh, my favorite thing. Okay. So we grow, in my garden, my favorite is little cherry tomatoes. There is nothing better than waking up first thing in the morning, going out to the garden and grabbing cherry tomatoes. But on the farm, we grow wheat, corn, and soybeans in a 3-year rotation. And for me, there is absolutely nothing more beautiful than a wheat field. To me, it's like oceans. It waves in the wind. And so I always say we live landlocked, but I live in an ocean of wheat. And I just think it's really beautiful. We just finished up. My husband texted me, Daryl texted me yesterday. We have finished the corn harvest. So 2017 harvest is done and in the bin.
All right.
So next year's wheat or soybean?
Yeah. So so each field is in different. Look at I love this. I'm getting Lindsay a farm education. So each field, so we have 800 acres, and each field is in its own 3-year rotation. So the home field at home this year goes into, we already planted our wheat crop. So it's winter wheat. So we planted in the fall. It'll come up in the spring, and we harvest it about the end of July, next August 1st.
That's so awesome.
Very cool.
You need to come to the farm, Lindsay.
I know, I want to come.
We're all coming after the election.
I know, we're moving up.
You are all more than welcome to come after the election or whenever you like.
Perfect. And then people just generally would love an update on just Shiloh and your adoption and your refugee family. So what's the latest with kind of your extended family right now?
Oh, it's been a pretty beautiful experience. Us Canadians just celebrated Canadian Thanksgiving, and to look around the table and to see little Shiloh at the table this year for Thanksgiving, and our Syrian refugee family all at the table, and my sister and her 6 kids, and my mom and it was just such a difference from last year at Thanksgiving. And to see our Syrian refugee mama, we actually call her, now that they're here, we're calling them newcomers. So as our newcomer family is here, for her to call for Shiloh and Shiloh to sit on her lap. It's Aleppo meet Beijing. It's been a beautiful experience for us. Our Syrian refugee family, the newcomer family, has just been, it's a profoundly traumatic experience. They're processing, I did it again, Lindsay, processing deep trauma. They still have family on both sides that are in Aleppo that call them every day to say, how do we get out of this living hell? And for them dealing with sort of why were they the ones that got to Canada, and they've got family living in a nightmare. So they've come to us and asked, would we help sponsor one of their relatives' families to come? And we said, yes, whatever we can do to try to help. So the little girls are flourishing at school to 9, 7, and 5. They've never been in school before in their lives. They never stop smiling. Both their mom and dad said the reason why we came to Canada was for our girls to get an education. So it's been a wonderful thing to make the table longer and bigger and invite more people in who are just in desperate need. Shiloh is the absolute joy of our lives. She's talking in full sentences now. The best part of my day, once I get to the end of my day, we have an IKEA hat crib. So it's 3 sides that's on the side of our bed. And so Shiloh's, she sleeps right there, and she calls for mama, and she needs to hold my hand every night before she goes to sleep. So I just think, I think living broken and given out into a broken-hearted world, we think in and of ourselves we don't have enough to give. But if we can say yes in small ways, we end up living the most fulfilling lives. We're just so grateful to live broken and given, and find ourselves in the most amazing relationship and community with people that we never would have imagined. So thanks for praying us through, everybody. It's been a crazy ride.
For those that haven't followed along with the refugee newcomer story, how did you first get connected with them, and how can other women that would like to sort of build a relationship with newcomers to their communities get involved?
Yeah, it's been a really great story. For us, it was through a Mennonite Central Relief Committee in Canada. It's sort of a bridge between the government and private sponsors. So actually our community, our little small country town, has our family's the first, but there's another 3 families that are coming. So I think if you go to, I worked with the Justice Conference to found WeWelcomeRefugees.com. So if you just log into WeWelcomeRefugees.com, they will go ahead and connect you with resources in your own community for how you can go ahead and help newcomers coming to your community, how you can help nationally and how you can help internationally, because we really are facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis since World War II. And I've been thrilled with the response of people as they've welcomed virtually, and people who put packages in the mail to give to our newcomer family, people want to respond and do something. They've seen the news of what's happening in Syria and Aleppo, and I mean, utter and complete destruction. And these people who, I mean, you don't leave home unless home is the mouth of a shark. These people are leaving there because you cannot exist as a human being there anymore. So I'm thrilled to see the response at WeWelcomeRefugees.com. So I think that's a great place to just go ahead, get connected right there.
That's awesome. The last question before we let you get back to your book tour is just, if we've seen so many women kind of come alive and to God's calling on their life, and something that we think they're wrestling with all the time is just what advice you have for them who want to use their voice and their lives to kind of change the world. Like, where do they begin, and what have you seen in your experience?
Oh, it's been pretty powerful in this book tour to see women come with their own brokenness and deep brokenness, and realize that brokenness doesn't disqualify you from being a world changer. Brokenness is what gets you to the table to say, don't ever trust leaders that don't limp, okay? Don't ever trust people that don't know deep brokenness. That brokenness gives you deep empathy for the brokenness in the world. So if you feel like, I'm too broken, I'm too busted, I can't go ahead and change the world at all, you're exactly the person that God is calling to go ahead and reach out. And really, I mean, I met a woman last night who deep traumatic sexual abuse all through her teenage years, and she radiated Christ. And she said, in the midst of my own brokenness, I've turned around and I'm now working with women's ministry in the prison with women who have experienced deep abuse. So I think, look at where do I feel most broken, and go out in the world and find other people who have the same brokenness and share. Look, this is what Jesus is doing in my life. Or share, like, this is really messy, I don't know how to do this. Can we both figure this out together? I think just watching women going ahead, and the greatest thing is watching in these book lines, women who don't know each other and they've stood beside each other, and before they come to meet me, they say, wait, what's your email address? It's like, and a lady last night said, we thought we came to meet you, but actually we needed to meet each other, and we're going to get together for coffee tomorrow. So I just think women just go ahead and step out of your comfort zone. Talk to somebody about right where you're at. And I think that's the beautifulness of the Broken Way. You find communion, connection, and deep intimacy in just reaching out.
Yeah. So true. Well, if you'd like to get a copy of The Broken Way, there's a button on the bottom of the page to buy it from Amazon. So get a copy, and I just feel the need to pray for Anne and just this book, and just all the women who kind of come alive to Christ and the beauty and the brokenness. So if you don't mind, Anne, can we pray for you real quick?
Oh, please. Thank you.
Awesome. Father, we just thank you so much for the way that you work in completely opposite ways than we do, God. I just love that you just have this upside down paradox, and that you take our most broken places and you make them mended and beautiful. And God, I just pray that more women would bring that out into the world and into the light as a result of the work that you're doing in their lives and through Anne and her book. And I just pray, God, for protection for Anne as more women bring that brokenness to her, that it would be Jesus that would meet them in those places. And I pray, God, that you would just draw women to you and men, and that you would be the thing that they most need, and that there would just be such freedom that's found in God just claiming this brokenness, and that the abundantness comes from communion with you and from communion with one another. And there's just so many things that hold us back from that. And so I just pray against Satan and all those things today. And we just pray that, God, that in that needs would be met, that there would be a spirit of giving unlike ever before, and that people would come to know your love as a result. And so thank you for Anne. God, we just lift her up to you today. We just pray perseverance, and that more people would come around her as she just continues to run the race that you have for her. And we just pray, God, that you would just work in and through her words and her life for Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, thank you so much. Love you girls to the moon and back. God go with you both.
Bye. Thank you. We
Thanks
love you.
so much.
I look forward to seeing you both face to face soon.
Yes, definitely.
God go with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.